Welcome to John Carter Stories, Tyler. Not dad, not father, not even my dad, Tyler. So people would understand the connection. Just Tyler. Like I was some family friend who had wandered off the street and happened to be wearing the wrong shoes for the occasion. That is how my own daughter introduced me to her friends at my granddaughter's award ceremony, after I had paid $45,000 for that child's education. Let me say that number one more time, so it lands properly. $45,000. My name is Raymond Brooks. I am 57 years old. I have been working construction since I was 22. 35 years of crawling under buildings and reading blueprints in trailer offices and going home with concrete dust under my fingernails that never quite came all the way out no matter how hard I scrubbed. 35 years of making sure that the buildings people go into every single day do not fall down on top of them. And apparently, none of that makes me good enough to sit with the actual family at Riverside Preparatory Academy. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end. And let me know which city you are listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. It means a great deal to me knowing where people are hearing this. Let me take you back to the night this whole thing started. The usher was young, maybe 25, clipboard in hand, practice smile that stopped about 6 inches short of her eyes. Behind her, I could see the auditorium. Crystal chandeliers, brass fixtures that probably cost more than my truck, row after row of seats filling up with people who smelled expensive. I am sorry, sir, but family seating is reserved for parents and primary guardians only. We have general seating available in the back section. I am Jessica Brooks' grandfather. I told her. Those first 10 rows had small brass placards on them. Reserved family seating. I counted at least a dozen empty chairs in that section. Probably more. The reserved section is quite full, sir. The practice smile again. But you will have a wonderful view from the back. Before I could tell her exactly what I thought about their seating arrangements, my daughter Claire appeared at my elbow, 32 years old, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in a week running job sites. Her hand touched my arm, gentle but firm, the way you handle an embarrassing relative who does not know the rules of the room he has walked into. Raymond, come on. I will show you where to sit. Raymond, not dad, not father, just Raymond, like I was Brandon's golf buddy or someone she had met at a networking event 6 months ago. She guided me toward the back of the auditorium, her heels clicking on that polished floor like a metronome, counting down something I could not yet name, but could absolutely feel. I caught her glance toward a cluster of people near the front. Men in suits that cost more than my truck, women wearing jewelry that caught the chandelier light every time they lifted their glasses from some pre-ceremony reception I had not been invited to. Claire, I said, stopping right where I stood, there are empty seats up front. It is assigned seating, Raymond. Her voice had that edge to it, the same tone she had used when she was 16 and did not want to be seen with me at the grocery store. Please do not make a scene. Do not make a scene. Those 4 words hit me harder than the time I took a 2x4 to the side of the head on a job site outside Dayton. I had been in construction since I was 22 years old. 35 years of double shifts and weekend jobs to make sure Claire had everything she needed after her mother passed. Ellen had been gone 8 years now. Heart attack at 49. Just dropped where she was standing in our kitchen while she was making Claire's favorite cookies for a college care package. I had raised that girl alone from the time she was 15. Worked myself down to nothing to pay for her college, help with a down payment on her first house. And 3 years ago, when she came to me crying about Jessica's education, when she begged me because the public schools just were not good enough, I had written a check for $45,000, half my retirement savings, gone in one signature. Because that is what fathers do. We sacrifice. We provide. We make sure our children have better than we did. I sat in the back row Z, practically, and watched my granddaughter Jessica walk across that stage. She was 12 years old in a white dress, holding her Mathematics Achievement Award, and from where they had put me, she looked like a doll in a dollhouse. I clapped as hard as I possibly could, but my applause dissolved into all those well-dressed people in the family section. The people who apparently mattered more than the man who had paid for Jessica to be standing on that stage in the first place. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the adjacent hall. More crystal, more marble, flower arrangements that probably cost what I spent on groceries in a month. I found Claire standing with her husband Marcus, 35, high-end residential contractor, doing well for himself on paper at least, and another couple I had never laid eyes on before. The man wore a watch that caught the light every time he moved. His wife had diamonds at her throat, like she was attending something considerably more prestigious than a middle school award night. "Raymond," Claire said, and I saw something flash across her face when she turned and found me standing there. Not embarrassment exactly, more like a rapid mental calculation of how much damage control she was going to need. "Raymond, this is Kevin and Sandra Merritt. Their daughter goes to school with Jessica." She paused just long enough to make it noticeably awkward. "Kevin, Sandra, this is Raymond." That was it. This is Raymond. Not this is my father. Not this is my dad, Raymond. Not even this is Raymond, Jessica's grandfather. Just Raymond, like I was the man who serviced their boiler or delivered their dry cleaning. "Pleased to meet you," I said, extending my hand. Kevin shook it. One of those brief, dismissive handshakes you give to someone you have already decided is not worth the full grip. "Are you at the school?" Sandra asked, already looking past me at something more interesting. "No, I am Claire's." "Raymond does consulting work." Claire jumped in, her voice bright and completely artificial. "Transportation logistics. Very technical. He is semi-retired now." Her hand was on my arm again, that same firm, steering pressure, moving me away from her conversation like I was a shopping cart that had rolled into the wrong aisle. "Raymond, I think Jessica is looking for you. Why don't you go find her?" She practically redirected me toward the dessert table before I could finish my own sentence. Before I could tell Kevin and Sandra Merritt that I was Claire's father, that I had raised her alone, that every dollar being spent in this marble hall had been earned by my two hands on job sites across 3 states. When we were out of earshot, I stopped walking. "Transportation logistics?" "Raymond, please." "I am a construction supervisor, Claire. I run job sites. I make sure buildings do not fall down. These people do not need to know that." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a structure fire. What is wrong with what I do for a living? Nothing is wrong with it. She glanced around, confirming none of her new friends were close enough to hear. "It is just, this is a different world. Marcus is trying to build relationships with potential clients. We need connections. We need people to see us a certain way." "What way is that?" She looked at me the way people look when they think they are being clear enough that the other person should already understand. Not as the daughter of a construction worker. There it was, clean and sharp as a box cutter. The truth she had been dancing around for months, maybe years. I had been demoted from father to liability, from provider to embarrassment. I found Jessica by the dessert table, still holding her award certificate. She had Claire's dark hair and my blue eyes, the same eyes that had watched her take her first steps in our old living room, back when this family was still something I recognized. "Grandpa." She hugged me tight, and for just one moment the whole evening disappeared. "Did you see? I got the highest score of my entire grade." "I saw, sweetheart. I am so proud of you." A girl in a designer dress hovered nearby, listening with the practiced casual ease that rich children learn early. "Jessica, who is that?" she asked, pointing at me like I was an interesting exhibit at a museum. "This is my grandpa Raymond," Jessica said, proudly, without a single hesitation. "Cool. What does your grandpa do?" "My dad is a cardiologist. He went to Duke." I looked down at Jessica's honest, open face waiting for my answer. Then I looked at this girl, who was parroting whatever her parents had taught her about status and hierarchies. "I supervise construction projects," I said. "I make sure buildings get built safe and strong." "That sounds really important," Jessica said immediately, and she meant it with her whole 12-year-old heart. "If buildings were not built right, people could get hurt." "Exactly right, sweetheart." Claire appeared beside us as if she had been monitoring my conversations from across the room. She sent Jessica off to say goodbye to her teachers, and then turned to me with that tight, controlled smile I have been seeing more and more of lately. "Did you tell her you are a construction worker?" She asked what I do for a living. Was I supposed to lie? I have been telling people you are in transportation consulting. Could you not just go along with that for one evening? Transportation consulting. Like I was some white-collar executive, instead of a man who had spent 4 decades making sure America's buildings did not collapse on the people inside them. Engagement break. I want to stop right here for just a moment because I know some of you are feeling this in a very specific place. That particular kind of hurt. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind that settles into your chest when you realize that someone you love more than anything has decided that the life you live to build theirs is something to be embarrassed about. If that is familiar to you in any way, drop a comment below. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me if you have ever been the person who gave everything and then got quietly redirected toward the back row. I am reading every single one. I drove home that night in my 15-year-old Ford F-150, the truck I had maintained myself for a decade, because I knew every bolt and gasket in that engine. The radio came on automatically, some country song about honest work and small-town values, and I turned it off. I needed quiet to think about what had just happened. Claire's words kept circling in my head. These people do not need to know that. Like, what I did for a living was some kind of dirty secret. Like the man who had raised her alone and sacrificed everything to give her opportunities he never had was something to be managed and kept at a careful distance from the people whose opinions actually mattered. I thought about Ellen. How proud she had been the day I got promoted to site supervisor. How she used to brag to her friends about the schools and hospitals I helped build. My Raymond builds things that last, she used to say, things that actually matter. But Claire did not see it that way anymore. To her, I was just an embarrassment in work boots. I sat at my kitchen table that night, the same oak table where Claire used to do her homework, where I had helped her with algebra and listened to her talk about her dreams of college and a better life. The house had been quiet since Ellen died, but that night it felt different. It felt honest in a way that marble auditorium never could. The next morning I called my bank and asked for my financial advisor, Margaret, who had been helping me navigate money decisions for 23 years. Raymond, good to hear from you, she said. What can I do for you today? That education fund I set up for Jessica, the one that has been paying Riverside Preparatory automatically. I need to make some changes. Of course. What kind of changes? I took a long breath. I want to set up a new education savings account in Jessica's name only. Transfer the remaining balance from the current arrangement into that new account. And I want to stop the automatic payments to the school. A long pause. Margaret had seen me through a great many financial decisions over the years, but this one clearly caught her off guard. That is a significant change, Raymond. The remaining balance is substantial. May I ask what is prompting this? Let's just say I want to make sure the money is there for Jessica when she actually needs it. College, graduate school, whatever path she chooses. But I want control over how it gets used. And the tuition payments for the current semester? Stop them. Effective immediately. Raymond, they are going to get a notice that the payment has failed. The school will contact Claire. I know. I hung up and poured myself another cup of coffee. Through the kitchen window, I could see my neighbor working in his garden, his hands in the soil, doing something real and productive. Honest work. The kind that builds something instead of just maintaining a performance. For 6 weeks after that phone call to Margaret, I went about my normal routine. Up at 5:30. Coffee and the paper. Then off to whatever job site needed me that day. I was overseeing construction of a new medical center downtown. 200 beds, state-of-the-art equipment. A place where people would come when everything in their life had gone sideways and they needed someone to help them get back to being okay. The kind of project that made me proud to clock in every morning. My crew respected me. The architects listened when I pointed out problems with their designs before those problems became expensive. The city inspectors trusted my work because they knew I had never cut a corner or compromised safety for the sake of a deadline. I was good at what I did. I had earned every bit of that recognition the hard way. But apparently none of that was good enough for my daughter's new social circle. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was reviewing blueprints in my site trailer when my phone rang. Claire's name on the screen. Raymond, there's a problem. What kind of problem? The school called. They said the tuition payment for the spring semester bounced. They said the account has been closed. Her voice was tight and controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath every carefully measured word. That is correct. Silence. What do you mean that is correct? I closed the account, Claire. I stopped the automatic payments. I could hear her breathing, trying to process what I had just told her. Why would you do that? Because I got tired of being your dirty little secret. I got tired of being introduced as Raymond to people who apparently do not need to know I'm a construction worker. Raymond, that is not. I paid $45,000 for Jessica's education. 3 years of tuition, paid in advance, because you asked me to, because you said family helps family. But I am not going to keep paying to be hidden in the back row of my own granddaughter's life. You are being completely ridiculous. I never said you were an embarrassment. You told your friends I do transportation consulting. You could not even say I was your father. That is not fair. You do not understand the situation we are in. Then explain it to me. And she did. All of it came pouring out like water through a crack in a foundation that had been growing wider for years, without anyone acknowledging it was there. Marcus's construction business was struggling. The high-end residential market had dried up after the latest economic downturn, and he was competing against firms with deeper pockets and longer relationships. They had leveraged everything on the assumption that he would land contracts through the connections Claire was building at Jessica's school. The BMW in their driveway, leased, payments they could barely cover, the country club membership necessary for networking, even though it was consuming their savings from both ends. The house with the 3-car garage and the manicured lawn that looked like a magazine spread, mortgaged to the absolute ceiling. Every single payment a genuine struggle. We are barely holding on, Raymond. If people knew how bad things really were, Marcus would never get the contract he needs. We have to maintain appearances. At what cost, Claire? At whatever cost it takes. This is about Jessica's future. This is about our family's survival. And what about me, Claire? Am I part of this family? Of course you are. Then why was I not sitting with the family at that ceremony? Why could you not introduce me as your father? She did not have an answer for that. The silence stretched between us the way a crack in a foundation stretches. Slowly at first, then faster. Then all at once when the weight finally gets to be too much. I have moved the money into a proper education account for Jessica. I said finally, it will be there when she needs it for college, or whatever comes after. But I am not funding your shame anymore. I am not paying for you to be embarrassed of me. Raymond, wait. I hung up. Engagement break. I want to stop right here, because this is the part that I think a lot of you understand from the inside. That specific moment when someone you love finally explains why they have been treating you the way they have been treating you, and the explanation somehow makes it worse instead of better. Because now you understand it was never actually about you. It was about what you represented to the image they were trying to construct. If you have ever been someone's financial safety net while simultaneously being their social liability, drop a comment. You are not alone in this, not even slightly. The next 3 months were the hardest I had faced since Ellen's funeral. Claire did not call. I did not call her. The silence in my house felt different now. Not just empty the way it had been since Ellen died, but wounded, like a room where something had broken that nobody had gotten around to cleaning up yet. I heard things through my brother Carl, who still talked to Claire occasionally. Jessica had been pulled from Riverside mid-semester. The tuition for the spring term was too steep without my prepayment, and they could not qualify for financial aid because of Marcus's business assets on paper. Jessica was now enrolled at Roosevelt Middle School, the same public school where Claire had gone before I had scraped together enough to send her somewhere better. Carl also told me that Marcus had lost a significant commercial contract, something that would have kept them operational for the next 2 years. The client had gone with a more established firm, better references, longer track record. The BMW had been returned to the dealership. They had canceled the country club membership. I wanted to call. Every instinct I had as a father was pushing me toward that phone. That is what we do. We solve problems. We provide answers. We make the hurt stop. But some things need to stay broken for a while before they can be put back together properly. Trying to fix it too soon just means fixing it wrong. I threw myself into the medical center project instead. Final phase, electrical systems to inspect, plumbing to approve, Safety protocols to review. Good, honest work that produced something real and lasting. When people got sick in this city, they would come to this building I had helped create, and they would get better. That mattered in a way that social climbing at a marble auditorium never would and never could. My crew knew something was eating at me. They did not pry. Construction workers understand that a man's private business is his own. They just made sure to do their jobs right the first time, which is the best thing you can do for a supervisor who is carrying extra weight. It was a Saturday afternoon in November when everything changed. I was in my garage rebuilding the carburetor on my old lawnmower, the kind of quiet, meditative work that helps you think without forcing it. When I heard a car pull into my driveway, through the window, I saw Claire's Honda. She sat in the driver's seat with the engine still running, like she was not quite ready to commit to the visit. But Jessica got out of the passenger side and walked straight up to my front door. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and went to let her in. "Grandpa." She looked older somehow, even though it had only been 3 months. Not physically, something behind her eyes. Experience, maybe, understanding that certain things in life cost more than money. "Come in, sweetheart." She sat at my kitchen table in the same chair where her mother used to do homework all those years ago. For a moment I could see Claire at that age, back when she thought I was the smartest man on earth instead of someone to be managed and redirected. "Why did you stop paying for my school?" Jessica asked. I had known the question was coming. I had practiced different ways to answer it. Try to figure out how you explain adult failures to a 12-year-old without making her feel like any of it was her fault. But sitting across from her, seeing Ellen's gentleness in her face mixed with Claire's determination, all my practiced answers dissolved. "Because sometimes the price of something is not just money," I said. "Sometimes we pay with pieces of ourselves. And I had paid too many pieces." She frowned, working through it. "I did not understand. Your mom was embarrassed of me, of what I do for work, and I got tired of apologizing for having an honest job." "She told me you are a construction supervisor," Jessica said. "She said you make sure buildings are safe, so people do not get hurt." That surprised me. After months of the transportation consulting story, Claire had apparently told Jessica the truth. Did that bother you? Finding out what I actually do? "No," she smiled, and it was the kind of smile that comes from somewhere completely genuine, the kind you cannot manufacture. "I think it is really cool, actually. My new school had career day last month," Jessica said. "All the parents came in to talk about their jobs. There were doctors and lawyers and a teacher, and one kid's mom works for the mayor's office." She paused. "But nobody had a grandpa who builds things." "What did you tell them?" "I told my teacher about you, how you make sure hospitals and schools are built correctly. She said construction supervisors are really important because they keep people safe. She said without people like you, buildings could fall down and hurt everyone inside." She reached into her backpack. "We also had to write an essay for English class about someone we admire." She unfolded a piece of paper and set it on the table between us. "I wrote it about you. Do you want to read it?" The title was my grandpa, the builder. I took my reading glasses from my shirt pocket, the same ones I used to review construction plans, and I read it slowly. She had written about how I had worked since I was 22, how I had raised her mother alone after Grandma Ellen died, how I had paid for her mother's college, even when money was as tight as it gets. She wrote about visiting my job sites when she was small, how I had shown her how to read blueprints, and explained why every single measurement had to be exact, why being close enough was never actually good enough when people's safety was involved. She wrote that I was the hardest working person she had ever known, and that she wanted to build things too when she grew up. But it was the last paragraph that got me. My grandpa taught me that there is no shame in honest work, only in dishonest living. He built hospitals where sick people get better and schools where children learn important things. When I grow up, I want to help people the way my grandpa does, by building things that matter and building them right. I could not finish reading it out loud. My eyes were not cooperating. "Grandpa, are you okay?" I took a moment. "I am more than okay, sweetheart. This is the best thing anyone has ever written about me, in my entire life." "Really?" Her face lit up. "Mom cried when she read it too." Then she said we needed to come see you. I looked out the kitchen window at Claire's car, still running in the driveway. She had been sitting there for 20 minutes, working up whatever she needed to walk up to my front door. Why don't you go get your mom? Tell her I would like to talk to her. Engagement break. I need to pause here for a second, because I know this part hits differently depending on where you are in your own life. There's something about a child's honesty, completely unfiltered, without any of the social calculations that adults wrap around everything they say, that has a way of cutting through years of complicated feelings in about 30 seconds. If a child has ever said something to you that cracks something open in the best possible way, drop it in the comments. I want to hear it. And if you are dealing with your own version of being made to feel small by someone you love, share your story. You are not alone in this. A few minutes later, Claire knocked on my front door. Her eyes were red. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but like a person who had been carrying a great deal of weight and had finally, in the last few hours, set some of it down and was still figuring out how to stand without it. "Dad," she said. And that single word hit me like a warm hand on the back of my neck on a cold morning. Not Raymond. "Dad." "Come in, Claire." We sat at the kitchen table, the three of us, and for the first time in months it felt like the thing I remembered, like a family that had found its way back to the room where it actually lived. "I am sorry," Claire said. "I am so sorry, Dad. I got so completely caught up in trying to fix our lives, and try to keep up appearances long enough for things to turn around, that I forgot what actually matters. And then Jessica wrote that essay, and I read it, and I realized what I was doing." Her voice broke clean through. I was teaching her to be ashamed of the best man I know. "I am not perfect, Claire, but you are real. You are honest. You have worked your whole life with your hands, and there is honor in that. There is genuine dignity in that." She wiped her eyes. "I forgot that. I am so sorry I forgot that. What happens now?" I asked. Marcus took a steady position with Henderson Construction. Regular hours, decent pay, good benefits. He is going to rebuild his own business the right way this time, with projects he can actually handle on the timeline he can actually meet. We sold the house last month. We are renting a smaller place until we get properly back on our feet. And Jessica? Claire looked at her daughter across the table. "She loves Roosevelt. She joined the robotics club." "Is that right?" Jessica nodded, suddenly a little shy about it. I like figuring out how things work, taking them apart to understand them, and then putting them back together. I looked at my granddaughter for a long moment, just like her grandpa. I said. Claire laughed through her tears, and the sound of it filled my kitchen the way it used to when she was young, and the house was loud, and Ellen was still alive, and everything felt solid and permanent. Part 4 is the months that followed. Jessica at my kitchen table every Saturday. The conversations, Claire, and I had that we should have had years earlier. The medical center opening. And the afternoon in my garage when Jessica asked me a question about her future that I did not have a good enough answer for. So I gave her the only honest one I had. Keep going. Over the months that followed, everything slowly rebuilt itself the way good construction does. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily, one solid piece at a time. Jessica started coming over every Saturday morning. We would work on something in the garage or out on the property, and I would teach her what I knew. Load-bearing walls, foundation principles, how to use a level properly, how to read the stress points in a structure, how to spot a potential problem before it became a dangerous one. She was a natural, quick hands, sharp mind, always asking exactly the right question at exactly the right moment. The first Saturday we worked together in the garage, she picked up a steel measuring tape and asked me how you knew which measurements actually mattered and which ones were close enough. "None of them are close enough," I told her. "That is the whole answer." She looked at me, processing that. "None of them. The only measurement that does not matter is the one on something that is not going to carry any weight. The moment something has to bear a load, the moment a real person is going to stand on it or under it or inside it, every measurement matters. Every single one." She was quiet for a moment, turning the tape measure over in her hands. Then she nodded like something had just clicked into place inside her head. That was a good Saturday. At the hospital, the medical center project hit its final milestone on a Thursday morning in late January. I walked the completed building with the lead architect and the city's chief inspector, both of whom I had worked with on other projects over the years. Everything was right. Everything was safe. Everything was built the way it was supposed to be built. The inspector shook my hand at the end of the walkthrough. Same as always, Raymond. Clean work. I drove home that afternoon and sat in my kitchen for a long time. I thought about all the people who would walk into that building over the coming years, some of them on the worst days of their lives, some of them arriving scared and leaving relieved, some of them arriving in ambulances. I thought about the fact that every wall and every beam and every junction box and every fire suppression line in that building had been checked and double-checked by someone who understood that the measurements mattered. I thought about what Jessica had written in her essay, and I understood something I probably should have understood much sooner. The work was always enough. The work was always worth being proud of. The only thing that ever made me doubt that was someone else's shame, and that was their burden to carry, not mine. One Saturday in spring, Jessica and I were replacing some deck boards that had gotten soft over the winter. She was measuring cuts while I marked the lines, and we had been working in comfortable quiet for about an hour when she asked the question, "Grandpa, do you think I could be a construction supervisor like you?" I looked at her, 12 years old, safety glasses pushed up on her forehead, pencil behind her ear like she had been doing this her whole life. "You could be anything you want, Jessica, but if you went into construction, you would be genuinely good at it. Mom says I should think about engineering school. She says I could design buildings and then make sure they are built correctly, too. What do you want?" She was quiet for a moment, holding the measuring tape, while I thought about what she was trying to say. "I think I want to understand everything. How to design something, and how to actually build it safely. Is that possible?" That is the smartest approach I have heard in years. She grinned at me from behind her safety glasses, and I could not have been prouder of that child if I had tried. That evening, Claire came to pick Jessica up. She stood in my garage doorway looking around at the tools I had collected over 4 decades. Saws, levels, wrenches, measuring tapes, all of it organized and labeled and maintained the way my father had taught me. "I used to play out here when I was little," she said. "You taught me the names of all the tools. Phillips head screwdriver, socket wrench, torque wrench. You had a very good memory. I had forgotten a lot of things." She turned to look at me. "Thank you, Dad." "For what?" "For not letting me stay lost. For caring enough about all of us to stop enabling my foolishness before I managed to teach Jessica that shame was more important than truth. You are my daughter. That is what fathers do." She hugged me then, and I could smell her shampoo, the same brand she'd been using since high school. For just a moment she was 16 again, sitting at the same table asking me to explain how electrical circuits work because she had a test in the morning and could not get the concept to stick. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo." Part 5 is the last part of the story, and it is the part one want to say directly to you, especially if you're currently in the middle of your own version of sitting in the back row while someone you love and built everything for pretends they do not quite know your name. One more part. Stay with me. Jessica's essay is framed now. It hangs in my garage, right next to my contractor's license, and a photograph of the medical center at its ribbon-cutting ceremony. I can see all 3 of them from where I stand when I am working on something. Sometimes, when measurement will not come out right or a piece will not cooperate, I look up and read that last paragraph again. My grandpa taught me that there is no shame in honest work, only in dishonest living. He built hospitals where sick people get better and schools where children learn important things. When I grow up, I want to help people the way my grandpa does, by building things that matter. That 12-year-old girl understood something that it took me 57 years to be fully certain of, and she understood it without anyone teaching it to her, which means it was always the truth, even when I was sitting in the back row wondering if maybe I had it wrong. Let me tell you where everyone ended up, because I know you want to know. Marcus's new position at Henderson Construction turned out to be a genuine turning point for him. Steady work, real relationships built on actual results rather than country club appearances, and a professional reputation that comes from doing jobs right instead of performing the image of someone who does jobs right. He and Claire are rebuilding. Slowly, honestly, the way things that are actually worth building get built. They are renting a house now that is smaller than the one they sold. Claire told me she likes it better. It feels like ours, she said one Sunday afternoon at my kitchen table. The other one always felt like a stage set. Jessica joined the engineering track at Roosevelt in the fall of her 8th grade year. She is currently designing a small footbridge model for a regional student competition. She called me last week to ask about load distribution, and I spent 45 minutes on the phone going through math with her while she took notes. And I do not think I have enjoyed a conversation that much in a very long time. I am still at the same company, still running job sites, still reviewing blueprints in trailer offices with my reading glasses balanced on end of my nose. I am currently overseeing a new library branch downtown. 4 stories, accessible design throughout, a children's section on the ground floor with windows all the way from the floor to the ceiling, so the light comes in properly. When it is done, children in the city will sit in that light and read books. My hand will have helped make that happen. There is no version of a country club membership or a BMW lease that feels better than that. Tell me in the comments. And if you have dealt with something similar, share your story. You are not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Because I know I am not the only person who has ever been handed back to the general seating section by someone they sacrificed enormously for. I know there are people watching this right now who recognize that exact feeling. The polished floor, the practiced smile, the hand on your arm steering you toward a back row that someone decided was where you belonged. And I want to say this as directly and as clearly as I can manage. Your work is not embarrassing. Your hands are not something to be apologized for. The life you built with those hands. Every early morning and late job site, and check written from savings that took years to accumulate. None of that is a liability. None of it is something to be hidden from polite company. It is everything. The only thing in this story that was ever actually embarrassing was the performance. The lease car, the country club membership nobody could afford, the practice smiles and the practice introductions and the desperate, exhausting effort to look like something other than what you actually are. Honest work does not need to be decorated. It stands on its own. That night at Riverside Preparatory, sitting in the back row while my daughter introduced me as just Raymond to people she was trying to impress. That hurt in a way I did not want to fully admit to myself at the time. But that hurt led somewhere. It led to Jessica in my garage on a Saturday morning, learning to read a measuring tape. It led to Claire sitting at my kitchen table saying Dad instead of Raymond, and meaning it in the full way of the word. It led to honest conversations in a small kitchen instead of performances in a marble hall. It led to a framed essay on my garage wall that I would not trade for anything. I paid $45,000 for Jessica's education at that fancy school. But the real education, the one about honest work and what things are actually worth and how to stand up straight when someone tries to make you feel small, that one we all got for free, and it was worth every single moment of the silence that came before it. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is refusing to go along with their self-deception. That is when love shows what it is actually made of, not in the easy moments. In the hard, quiet ones, when you stop funding the performance and make someone look at what is actually real. I learned that dignity is not something you put on for special occasions. It is not something you earn from people with expensive watches and marble floors and brass placards on reserved seats. It is something you carry every single day in the way you do your work, and the way you treat the people who depend on you, and the way you absolutely refuse, to apologize for the life you honestly built. My name is Raymond Brooks. I am 57 years old. I have been in construction for 35 years. I run job sites, and I review blueprints, and I make sure buildings do not fall down on the people inside them. And my granddaughter thinks that is the best job in the world. She is right. If you made it all the way to the end of this story, thank you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you took from it. Hit like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.